Hello and a very warm welcome to everyone. Thank you for tuning into this presentation titled Justice at the Crossroads. In the next few minutes, we will explore how real-life civil cases reveal hidden structural barriers to justice, particularly for vulnerable individuals. We will also see how procedural overlaps between courts can lead to unexpected delays and challenges in accessing legal remedies. Let's begin with a quick overview of how Malaysia's civil legal system is structured. The court system is arranged in several tiers, starting with the magistrates and session courts and moving up to the High Court, Court of Appeal, and the Federal Court at the top. In addition to this hierarchy, there are also specialized courts. For example, family courts handle matters such as divorce and child custody, while the Civil High Court deals with disputes involving land, contracts, and negligence. However, here's where complications often arise. When legal issues involve both family and civil matters, like a divorce tied to property disputes, these overlapping jurisdictions can create confusion. In many cases, this leads to delays, increased legal costs, and unnecessary emotional stress, particularly for those without legal representation. So, with that context in mind, let's now turn to our first case. The case of MALAYSIAN versus Ong Bebe is a clear example of how court overlaps can affect justice. This case began in the family court where a couple was going through divorce proceedings. Issues like spousal maintenance and child custody were on the table. However, things became more complicated when a land dispute involving third-party claimants emerged. That dispute was brought to the Civil High Court. Because of this development, the family court had to stay or temporarily suspend the divorce proceedings until the civil court resolved the property ownership issue. This delay meant the parties couldn't move forward with important family matters until another court settled the property question. This case highlights how multiple court processes can intersect and disrupt the timeline of justice. It's a reminder that structural delays often stem not from one case alone, but from the way legal systems interact. Let's now look at a very different yet equally important case, which is Child A versus Dr. Sivakumar. In this case, a minor represented by a litigation guardian brought a civil negligence claim against a medical practitioner. The family alleged that the child had suffered harm due to a medical error, but sadly, they were forced to withdraw the case not because the claim was weak, but because they couldn't afford the legal costs involved. Even so, the court recognized the child's vulnerability. Using its discretionary powers, it allowed the right to refile the case in the future, preserving the child's legal standing until the family could afford to proceed. This case illustrates the harsh reality that access to justice is often tied to financial means, but it also shows how courts can use their discretion to keep the door open for justice, especially when it involves minors or those who lack resources.
Now, let's dive deeper into the barriers faced in the MALAYSIAN case. The central issue was whether the jointly owned matrimonial home could be divided during the divorce. However, the situation became more complex when third-party claims contested the property's ownership. This forced the family court to halt the proceeding and wait for the civil court ruling. This delay shows how overlapping legal claims can stall justice, not because of unwillingness, but due to structural procedures that don't work in sync. Moving on to the Child A case, this one offers a different angles on access to justice. Here, the court recognized that financial hardship should not be permanently block a child's right to legal redress. By preserving the right to refile the claim when the child reaches legal maturity, the court took a compassionate and forward-thinking approach. This reflects the judiciary's vital role in protecting the rights of vulnerable groups even when immediate action isn't financially possible. Next, let's examine how each case moved through the legal system. In MALAYSIAN, we saw how a family-related case became entangled in a civil property dispute forcing a pause in proceedings. In contrast, Child A's case followed a more flexible path. The High Court adjusts the timeline to safeguard the child's legal opportunities in the future. This example helps us understand how court procedures and timelines can vary depending on the nature of the case and the people involved. Despite these challenges, it's important to highlight the positive roles courts can play. In MALAYSIAN, the family court shows restraint and waited for clarity from the civil court. In Child A, the High Court used its discretion to ensure that the child's right to sue wasn't lost due to financial hardship. This decision shows how judges can balance procedural rules with fairness, reminding us that the justice system also has a human face.
So, was justice actually achieved in these cases? Let's look into this. In both cases, justice wasn't outright denied, but it was definitely delayed. In Malaysia, the parties faced long periods of emotional and legal uncertainty. In Child A, no compensation was granted, but the court made sure the child could seek justice later. These outcomes reflect a justice system tries, but sometimes struggles to meet people where they are. What, then, can be improved to make justice more accessible? Malaysia needs better coordination between family and civil courts. Clearer procedures are needed when jurisdictions overlap. There's also a growing need to expand legal aid, especially for children, low-income families, and other vulnerable regions. Such reforms would go a long way in ensuring justice is not only fair but also timely affordable. Studying these cases helps us build essential legal skills. We learn to reason through facts and legal principles, trace the flow of a case throughout the court system, and reflect critically on whether the law delivers fair outcomes. These are the skills that we need, not just to understand the law, but to challenge it and improve it in practice. To wrap up, these two cases remind us of a crucial point. Courts can and do step in to protect rights. But the broader legal system still has gaps, whether in timing, coordination, or access. Real justice requires more than good rulings. It demands systems that support people, not slow them down. It's time to think beyond case outcomes and push for reforms that make justice a lived reality for everyone. Thank you for your time and attention. These cases serve as powerful reminder that justice must not only be fair, it must also be accessible, affordable, and delivered in time to truly make a difference.